Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Stamperia Magic Forest mini album tutorial series for ScrapNCreate.com. If you are just joining this series, there are other videos showing you the supply list, how to create the base pages, and how to create page 1. Today's video, we will begin constructing the fun interactive elements for page 2 front and back. If you are just joining, all of the supplies that are available on the ScrapNCreate website are listed in the description box below. So to get started with the first element for the page, we are going to need to cut one piece of cardstock to 5 inches by 8.5 inches. Then I'm going to score the top of this at 1/2 inch. We'll be using the corner rounder on the bottom 2 corners and then folding on the score line. This flap is going to go here at the top of the page. So it is going to go in the center. It will be slightly over that rounded corner. So once we have this on, we're going to just trim that corner slightly so that it is rounded. Next, we're going to cut one piece of cardstock to 5 inches by 3.5 inches. Down at the bottom, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. Fold on that score line. And then we are going to round these top 2 corners. Next, we're going to take one piece that's 6 inches by 2 inches. On the 6-inch side, we are going to score 1/2 and 5.5. Then we're going to rotate and score at 1/2 inch along the bottom. Now I'm going to cut to remove the excess paper from the corners of the pocket, and I'm going to miter these corners, and we'll fold on these score lines to create a pocket. So next, I'm going to bring this piece in first, and I'm going to adhere this flap to the bottom of my page. And just like at the top, once it's on, I'm going to slightly round this corner. Now, when I adhere this piece, I need to make sure that the sides of this small lower flap are actually straight with the flap on the top. So I'm going to place this on my page. Then I'm going to close this flap, and I'm going to move this slightly just so that everything is in line, and then I'll use my bone folder to press this down so that everything will be straight on my page. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and trim just that little tiny corner off of that pocket. Then I'm going to take my small pocket, and I'm going to adhere this here on top of my flap right at the bottom. So I'm adding my adhesive to all 3 of my tabs. Then I'm just going to line this up with the bottom edge and then press down, making sure that I start in the center and press outward so that everything stays lined up and there's not a pucker in the pocket. So now I have my pocket, and I have my lower flap, and then I have my large flap to close the page. The next thing we're going to do is build up a frame element on the base of the page like we did with page 1, but it's going to be slightly different this time. Next, we've got a piece of cardstock that measures 5 3/4 by 9 1/4. We're going to score this on 3 sides. I'm going to score first over here on the left side. So I'm going to flip my paper upside down and I'm going to score 1/2 inch. Then placing that against my score lines, I'm going to score this at 1/2 inch on the top. And then I'm going to score this at 8 3/4, and that will give me 1/2 inch on the bottom. So I've got my 1/2 inch around my 3 sides. I am going to miter these sides, and then I'm going to cut into my corners to remove that extra paper. And we're going to fold on these score lines. We need to bring our piece in, and we have to make sure that this is going to fit in here. Just like we did on the first page, we have to make sure it's going to fit in the center with these 2 flaps closed. So again, if it is not the right size, mine is still just a little too big, I am going to redo this. So I'm going to unfold these, and I'm going to rescore this side to make it just a little tiny bit smaller. So again, I don't need a whole lot, just a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit to there, just to give it that little tiny extra. And you can also just do this whenever you are first making your piece, if you want to just make it a little tiny bit smaller when you do that. So you don't have to do it a second time. You can just accommodate for it the first time you do it. So now my paper will close nice and flat. So next we're going to start cutting out our windows for our frames. And instead of having one large one, we're going to have a small one here and a small one here. So I have measured 1/2 inch from all 4 edges and drew a line around. And then I measured in the center, my center point, and I have a 1/2 inch strip in my center. I'm going to cut out this square and this square. So I'm going to erase this line here and this line here. I'm not going to cut this all the way through. Now I'm going to be using my paper trimmer like I did for the first one. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, you can always use scissors and just cut around those places where you see those lines. But the paper trimmer that has the wire on it, it's a really easy way to do this. Excuse my head, as I will need to see this as I'm doing it. But if you just place your wire right on that line, you will be able to see exactly where you need to trim to. Going to do the same thing on this side, lining everything up and cutting. And I'm going to remove all of these pieces so that I have my frame, and then we'll apply it to the page. I have my frame piece. I'm going to flip this over, and now I have my piece of vellum. It measures 5 inches by 8 inches. I'm going to use my 1/4 inch double-sided tape and add adhesive all the way around my frame section. once I have my double-sided tape on and I have my corners pulled up, I'm going to place my paper down. Just so that it catches on those pieces that are already pulled off. Then I'm going to remove all of these backing pieces. And then I'll burnish this down so it has a good secure hold. And now my pocket is ready to go into my book or into my page. So I'm going to bring my page in, open those flaps, and this side is going to go up against the left edge, and then the pockets are going to go here. Before I do this though, I'm going to add a piece of double-sided tape just to this center section here. Now I'm going to leave this on. I'm not going to take this off until I place my decorative paper there first. Once that decorative paper is slid in, then I will reach up under here and pull this off and we'll put this down. So we're going to add the adhesive to the 3 tabs. And I'm going to line up the left edge and the top and the bottom edge, making sure that this flap will close nice and smoothly. So now that I know everything is good, I'm going to press down, I'm going to open back up, and then I'm going to smooth this down. Now we do have this rounded corner, so I'm going to come in here with my scissors and I'm going to round this since I forgot to do it with my corner rounder before I put this in. Same thing on the top. So now I have the build for page 2 on the front. We're going to flip over and build the back of page 2. For the back of page 2, we need 2 pieces that measure 5 1/4 by 4 5/8, and we are going to score this. One of these pieces we're going to score at the top on the 4 5/8 inch side at 1/2 inch. And on the second piece, we're going to score this at the bottom at 1/2 inch. Then we're going to cut one piece to 4 3/4 by 6 1/4. We're going to score this at 1/2 inch on the left hand side of this flap. So for this one, I'm just going to fold and score with my bone folder on that line. And then I'm going to use my corner rounder on both of these corners on the right hand side. For these pieces, I'm going to fold them on the score line. And then this flap is going to go here, so I'm going to need to score this top corner. or I'm going to need to use the corner rounder on the top corner to match this corner. The one that's scored at the bottom is going to go on the bottom, so I need to use the corner rounder on the bottom left corner. So I'm going to start by adhering my top and bottom flaps. These should meet in the middle of the page. They should not be overlapping, so if your pieces are overlapping, you will need to trim them. So we're going to put first piece down, making sure everything is in line and straight. And while that piece is on, place your second piece on the page and make sure that it will fit without there being any overlap. So I have just a very tiny slight gap between my pieces, and that's what you will need. If this piece does not fit at that way, if they overlap at all, you want to trim the flat edge of this piece just slightly so that there isn't that overlap. I'm going to go ahead and adhere this piece to the top of the page, lining everything up. So now I have these two flaps. Then I'm going to take this flap and place it on the left-hand side in the center. So I'm going to mark my center and adhere this in the middle. So now I have my flap that folds out to the left, and I have my upper and my lower flap. This is the basic build for page 2 back and page 2 front. In the next video, we will begin decorating, starting with the front of page 2 and moving on to the back of page 2. And if you're new to the tutorial series, you can head over to ScrapNCreate.com to pick up all of the Stamperia Magic Forest papers. They will be linked in the description box below. Stay tuned for decorating page 2.